Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Chloe from the Arizona Science Center coming to you for our Early Learning Lives. If this is your first time, we do this every day, Monday through Saturday at 9:30 a.m. And then we do also do an afternoon demonstration at 1 p.m. So today we're going to be talking about sound waves. And in order to help us talk about it, we're going to read this cute little book. It's called Polar Bear, What Do You Hear? By Bill Martin Jr. and Eric Carle. Polar Bear, what do you hear? I hear a lion roaring in my ear. Lion, what do you hear? I hear a hippopotamus snorting in my ear. Look at how big this lion is. He's pretty cool. Hippopotamus, what do you hear? I hear a flamingo fluting in my ear. So if we saw a polar bear and he heard a lion, and then the lion heard a hippopotamus, what animal do you think is coming next? Let's see. It's a flamingo. Flamingo, what do you hear? I hear a zebra braying in my ear. Do you know what braying means? Braying is kind of the sound that like a horse makes. And look, it's a zebra. Zebra, what do you hear? I hear a boa constrictor hissing in my ear. Look at the zebra, he's got some beautiful stripes on him. Boa constrictor, what do you hear? I hear an elephant trumpeting in my ear. Well, we're seeing all kinds of animals. I wonder where this is. Elephant, what do you hear? I hear a leopard snarling in my ear. Leopard, what do you hear? I hear a peacock yelping in my ear. Look at the leopard. He's got some pretty cool spots. Peacock, what do you hear? I hear a walrus bellowing in my ear. Have you ever noticed that peacock's feathers almost look like their eyes? I think they have beautiful feathers. Walrus, what do you hear? I hear a zookeeper whistling in my ear. So you've seen all kinds of animals. Well, what do you think's coming next? Zookeeper, what do you hear? So it looks like they might be at a zoo. I hear children growling like a polar bear, roaring like a lion, snorting like a hippopotamus, fluting like a flamingo, braying like a zebra, hissing like a boa constrictor, trumpeting like an elephant, snarling like a leopard, yelping like a peacock, bellowing like a walrus. That's what I hear. You can see all of the kids wearing different masks. Do you have a favorite animal out of any of these? I'd say out of all of these, I think the walrus is my favorite. He's got some pretty cool tusks. Let me know which one your favorite is. But wasn't that neat? So how did the polar bear hear all of those things? It's because the animals were making sounds, right? They all have their own unique sound and they all make all different kinds of noises. But those noises aren't the kind of noises that humans make, right? But we all still make sound, and we make our sound through our vocal cords. We can hear that sound because of something called sound waves. So when we make a sound, these waves are traveling out of our mouths quicker than we can see, but all of that sound is traveling all the way back to your ears. If you want to feel sound waves, you can put your hand on your throat and you can feel a vibration, and that's actually your vocal cords. So if you don't really make this kind of feeling, then you can always, with the permission, of course, touch someone else's and see if you can feel their vocal cords vibrating and creating those sound waves too. Now, if you really want to see some sound waves, do you know what this is? This is a tuning fork. So this tuning fork is tuned to the key or to the letter C. So in music, you have a bunch of sounds and we've given each of those sounds a name, and that name is going to be a letter. So this is C. Can you hear that through the computer? You may not be able to see it, but it's actually vibrating really quickly, and that's how it's creating that pitch. And if you want to see it, oh, you can also see it like that. When I rest this on there, it kind of bounces around. Or what's really cool is I have some water. So I'm going to hit this, and you can watch as it does that. So if you happen to have anything cool, like a tuning fork at home, you can always try that. Let's see that again. That's pretty neat. Hit it one more time. And that vibrating's also shaking off the water droplets and splashing everywhere. If you're going to do something like this, though, you definitely don't want to use a shallow dish. Otherwise, the water does get everywhere. So back to those sound waves. What does that look like? So with a high-pitched sound, so if someone's talking really high like this, you're actually creating sound waves that are going to be very close together. That means that over time, the amplitude is short. All of those little waves are close together. You can kind of see that right there. But what about a low pitch? So if you're going to talk with a low voice, the pitch is going to look a little bit more like that. So it's going to have a much longer wave going across. But what other kind of pitches are there? There's also a high volume sound. So if you turn up the volume on your computer and you can hear everything very high, it's going to be because the amplitude over time is large. You're going to be able to hear more sound because those waves are making more. And then low volume, it's going to be the opposite, right? Just like the opposite of a low pitch, this one's going to be much smaller. So even though over time, these are making the same amount of waves, you can see that over the same amount of time, they all have 3 on top, 2 on the bottom, 3 on top, 2 on the bottom. But there's smaller distance between the average and the amplitude, right? So if you think of something like this is a glockenspiel. So this has some nice metallic keys on them, makes a beautiful sound. And you can see that these are also lettered with those letters that I was mentioning about. They're the letters of the Roman alphabet, or the alphabet that we use. So we've got C all the way to C, and that's what we would call a scale. It goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. It goes right back to the beginning, okay? And you can kind of see that these ones over here are bigger than these ones over here. So what do you think that means? Do you think the larger one is going to make a lower pitch sound or a higher pitch sound? So think back to those waves. Do you think the lower pitched one is going to be the big one, or is it going to be the small one? Well, if you guessed that the lower pitched one is going to be this bigger one, you're correct. And we're going to make our own instruments today. So you can just use some straws. You can see that the thicker straws actually work a little bit better. But if you hear, it kind of goes from a low pitch to a high pitch. So how can we do that at home without having something like a glockenspiel? Well, if you can see, I cut the tops of the straws. So these are like boba straws. So they're nice and thick, so they get a lot of good airflow through them. But if you cut the tops off, they become different sizes. And those different sizes are going to be very similar to the boom whackers that we have at the Arizona Science Center. So if you've ever been to the music landing in between the 2nd and 3rd floor, we have these really cool things. And everyone hits them against each other. And that's what they're for. They're for hitting. But they also make different pitches. So this one is much bigger and this one's smaller. Do you think the sound waves from this one are going to be higher pitched or lower pitched? And same for this one. Let's find out. I've got my little hitty thing. I don't know about you, but this one sounds higher to me. And that is because those sound waves, if you think about it kind of as though, let's say each tube can only hold about 10 waves, right? So 10 of those things. A shorter tube is going to, or this is the shorter tube, a shorter tube doesn't have as much space for those 10 sound waves to fit through, right? So since it's all kind of squished together, that sound is going to be pushed up against each other, and those waves are going to look more closely like the high-pitched ones as opposed to the low-pitched ones, because there's more space in this tube for those 10 waves to get across. And when you make yours at home, you can think of that as the same thing. So when you are making a lower-pitched sound, you're going to not want to cut as much of the straw off. But if you're making a higher-pitched sound, you definitely want to cut more off. In this case, I did about 1/2 inch away from each other just to give them all a good half-step sound in music. So you can try it with me if you have one. If you like this activity and you definitely want to see more things like this, again, we do this every morning at 9:30 a.m., our early learning lives, and then we have some pretty cool demonstrations at 1 p.m. as well. If you'd like, you can check out some of our write-ups and other resources on our website at azscience.org. And then we do also have some challenges going on. For this past week, it was actually about the night sky. So please go check that out on our Instagram. That's also at azscience. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Bye.